ॐ तवतामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं शरवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि वदन्ति भूरिराजना. Your words are like nectar, bringing life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome, everyone, to our class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah, I missed the last 2 Fridays. I was in our Southern California centers, but we're on the chapter, the Durga Puja Festival. This is chapter 29. It began on page 558, Friday, September 26th, 1884, and we stopped on page 561 in the middle. And yeah, it starts out that Sri Ramakrishna had come to Calcutta. It was the first day of Durga Puja, and Sri Ramakrishna intended to visit the image of the Divine Mother at Adhar's house. He also wanted to see Shivanath, the Brahmo devotee. So now Sri Ramakrishna, Vijaykrishna Goswami is there. So most of this conversation that we started is with Vijay. And this was just at the time, if we go back to page 559, Vijay still belonged to the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj. This was the when he split with Keshav. He was a salaried preacher at that organization, but could not obey all its rules and regulations. So he first separated himself from Keshav because of the marriage of the daughter, and now is having trouble because he's feeling more and more drawn to a devotional type of worship, and especially image worship, the worshiping God with form. Very often, when Sri Ramakrishna was talking about the worship of God with form, he was referring specifically to being able to go to a temple and offer whatever to the image of the deity there. So this is the background behind the conversation between Sri Ramakrishna and Vijay. Okay, now we start with a very important statement. Sri Ramakrishna says, I ask people to renounce mentally. I do not ask them to give up the world. If one lives in the world unattached and seeks God with sincerity, then one is able to attain Him. Now, this is a very, very important question. What does it mean to renounce mentally? And what is the difference between internal and external renunciation? Yeah. And of course, the obvious distinction will be those who take to monastic life. This is what Sri Ramakrishna refers to them as renouncing both internally and externally. But what does it mean to renounce mentally?
For householders, I think it's very
for householders, but see, the monk has to also see all renunciation is mental. It's all mental, but how do we live in the world? That's the other half. The main distinction when Sri Ramakrishna talks about renunciation, he's talking about renunciation of family life. This is the main thing, that those who take to monastic life, that the two of the main obstacles, kama, lobha. This is what Thakur calls kama kanchana or kamadi kanchana. Yeah, that these are the two things that they don't have to deal with in their lives. It's for whether it's men or women, that they won't be having a family and they won't be having a career. These are the two things. These are the two main things. We have a family That means that there'll be uh, some type of physical enjoyment. We have a career. That means there'll be some type of possession, of accumulation of wealth. So the main thing is the question of what kind of attachment do we have. Now, we hear about King Janaka, that he could have an entire kingdom without being attached. Now, does this mean that we can have as many possessions as we like, and we can live any type of lifestyle and do whatever we want and be non attached to it and be following this teaching? I don't think so. I, and we'll find that there are many householder disciples of Sri Ramakrishna who are equally austere as the monastic disciples. Of course, we all know about Nag Mahashai. He was the epitome of renunciation. Uh, so the distinction blurs quite a bit. It blurs quite a bit because now in our monastic uh, tradition that we have now, we're monks, but we also have jobs in a sense. We're not doing it for to raise a family. We're not doing it to accumulate wealth, uh, but it's it's understood that if we don't do these things, we don't deserve to live in the sangha and to be able to have a nice place to live. And yeah, that there were times when some of the early monks who joined, the second, third generation, when they would complain to Holy Mother sometime that we came, we wanted to realize God, we wanted to devote ourselves to spiritual practice, and here we find we're so busy with the work of the center. Sometimes it's office work, sometimes in a hospital publication center. We don't. It can be anything. And she said, "That's fine. You want to devote all of your time to spiritual practice. That's fine. Then be a wandering sadhu and live under a tree like the others do. You want to be able to live the beautiful life in our organization and everything, then you have to serve. That also has to be part of what we do now. The householder who has the same attitude, there won't be much of a distinction. The way a householder will do his or her work in the world, and one is a scientist, one is a doctor, whatever. If it's done with that spirit of worship, then there's not much of a distinction at all. That we also have to do the same thing. We also have our possessions. We also live in a house. So the main distinction will be, of course, that we don't have a family, and we don't have uh, private money. Although nowadays even sadhus can have their own bank account, yeah, but not in the same sense that a householder will. So this is the main distinction from the external point of view. From the internal point of view, uh, there has to be this perfect non-attachment. Now, a monk can get attached to his own center. Yeah, that the ashram itself becomes our sangsar. Yeah, this is our Swami Paramishananda. He used to warn the young monks. Yeah, and don't form that same attachment to the center that a householder does to his house, and to the brother monks that they do to their family members. Now, uh, attachment and love are again two different things. Yeah. So it's very important that, say, within the Sangha, that we love the center, we love the work, we love our brother monks, that we love the devotees and everything. But if we're asked to leave, we can leave in a moment and go to some work in a different center, something like that, that type of non attachment. So the, the main thing is non attachment. But if one has this real spirit of non attachment, then one will not have a desire to overdo it. Then the moderation will become something very natural. There won't be a desire to become the wealthiest person, to have the most enjoyment. So for the householder, there has to be some moderation, and it shouldn't be too much forced, because the householder has to also do spiritual practice and also feel that that's the same goal. Householder and the monk, they have to have that same understanding that uh, this life is not meant for enjoyment. This life is meant to achieve something, to have a higher ideal. Even if we're not uh, completely spiritual people, to have some ideal to live for others, to serve, some ideal of service. Uh, in our tradition, of course, we don't distinguish. This the ideal to serve others and to realize God go hand in hand. This is our twin ideal that we talk about. So this mental renunciation will have two elements to it, two sides to it. One is uh, in the midst of having possessions and having enjoyment and living in the world, that we don't have that attachment to it. This is number one. And number two is that we really do the minimum based on dharma, based on to lead a dharmic family life. That means that to raise the family, to have a business, a career, whatever it is, that can support the family and support other people and support society. So to do all of these things with that sense of dharma, and to understand that the householder stage of life is meant to prepare ourselves for ultimately leading the same type of life that the monk will live. Now, it doesn't mean completely leaving the world and going to the forest or anything like that. It can lead to a retired stage of life and everything. And the old ideal of taking to sannyasa as the final stage of life. This is something that very few will do. Very few people will do that. But uh, to live, Sri Ramakrishna says, uh, stage comes when the husband and wife live like brother and sister. Okay, so almost like we live with our brother monks. At that stage, there's not too much difference, but the mindset will always be a little bit different. See, those who renounce the world, it's this idea of vairagya is different from this idea of say non-attachment. This idea of non-attachment is that we enjoy things, but we can let go of them. The idea of vairagya is that this world has no appeal. This is like a blazing forest fire. Thakur uses that type of language, that our relatives seem like poisonous snakes. This desire to run away from all of that and to dedicate dedicate the whole life for God realization. So Sri Ramakrishna, he had uh, a variety of different types of disciples, and there were those who came to him after, before, we can say before they came to him, had already taken the family life. And take M, for example. If M had met Sri Ramakrishna before he got married, then he would have probably, of course, we don't know, of course, but probably, uh, if his desire had been fulfilled, he would have been a monk. Because even after getting married, he wanted to be a monk, and he requested Sri Ramakrishna. Uh, but there was no possibility at that time. He was already married when he met Sri Ramakrishna with children. Then there were the others who really had that monastic mentality for some of the young boys who came, but they were too young and the parents didn't allow it and they forced them to get married that way. So uh, when Sri Ramakrishna, he never pushed anyone to this life of renunciation unless they had that inner calling for it. This is what he's saying. He said, I ask people to renounce mentally. I do not ask them to give up the world. So he knew intuitively, instinctively, almost at the first meeting. He knew which of the disciples were meant to be monks and to renounce everything for the welfare of the world and for God realization. So this was something very clear in his mind. There were some that he would have liked to have encouraged, but he knew that the family wouldn't allow it, and he also knew that they wouldn't be happy, and that it was a bad fit for them. See, there's this Vijaykrishna, that he was a married man, and it was a bad fit on two levels. One, he's a member of the Brahmo Samaj, and yet he has that inner bhakti, that devotional attitude. It comes from a very high Vaishnava family, Goswami family, and that was something Thakur would say that it was in his blood. Yeah, this devotional attitude. And the second thing was that he had that sense of renunciation. And now, perhaps it was awakened after meeting Sri Ramakrishna. But we know that he was also a married man, and also renounced. In the early tradition, renouncing the world was something that was a little controversial, and there were different positions that these different authors of this Dharma Shastra, they different ideas. Some said you had to go through all first three stages of life. That means you were brahmacharya, you had to be a householder, and then you would lead the vanaprastha life, and then you can renounce. And some said that at any stage you can renounce. Some praised the householder stage of life, that the others really weren't part of society. It wasn't really part of stages of life because it was outside the pale. Something. So there were different opinions and things. And then there's a verse, a line that we always quote from a very otherwise minor Upanishad. Yad ahar eva virajit, tad ahar eva pravrajit. That very day that one feels that intense renunciation, that day one can renounce the world. It doesn't matter. So there was some provision that if somebody had that tremendous feeling of renunciation, but had married, they should at least give birth to a male child, so that there'll be somebody to support the wife, the child's mother. Yeah. So this is what happened in the case of Swami Vivekananda's grandfather. So after the son was born, who became Swamiji's father, then he renounced everything. He left, and they only saw him once or twice after that. They tried to pull him back, but they couldn't do it. So this was that tradition now. And we see some during Thakur's time who were married, but got inspired, maybe over enthusiastically. They wanted to live with Sri Ramakrishna and renounce everything. And he would scold them. Who's going to feed your family? The people from your neighbors are going to do it. He said you have an obligation, a responsibility to them. Yeah. So it all depended on the particular stage of life and everything. But this detachment, when he says that if one lives in the world unattached and seeks God with sincerity, then one is able to attain him. This has to be a tremendous type of dispassion and non-attachment. If we're talking about God realization, because even for those who renounce the world, how many will be God-realized souls? And how many monks have that type of vairagya and real burning dispassion for the world? See, this vairagya means intense longing for God also. This was the other half that Sri Ramakrishna always spoke about. That there'll be many people who they don't enjoy this world, but they have no higher ideal or anything. They just kind of escapists or lazy people, whatever. That they get no pleasure from this world. It may even be some type of depression or something like that. But those who have this burning renunciation, that means that uh, there's nothing in this world in itself that is so horrible for them, but there's nothing that tempts them. And they see the traps that are there, and they see how easily attachment can come. So they have a tremendous desire to get out, whatever that means, God realization, or to lead a life of renunciation. See, we're not supposed to look upon uh, taking our final vows. We're not supposed to look upon that as the goal. This is just along the way. The goal of life is God realization. But there's a sense in which uh, we feel that we've, or at least for me personally, we feel that uh, we're living up to the ideal if we can be good sadhus, whether we have God realization or not. That itself is a tremendous feeling of uh, I don't know, doing leading the life that we feel we're meant to lead, something like that. So when Thakur says that we have to live in the world unattached, so how does one live in the world unattached if one has possessions and one has loved ones? See, the greatest attachment will be probably the mother and the newborn child, uh, or it can be any husband and wife, the child to the mother. All of these things are very, very strong types of attachments. So Sri Ramakrishna gives uh, different kind of ideals, different ways that we can uh, keep from being overly attached. So the one that is most appealing to many people, and I find helpful for many people, is this idea that we don't possess anything, that like the maidservant in the rich man's house, that we really understand that this isn't my house, that these aren't my children, that I'm raising them the same way I raised the children that are the master's children. So those nannies or those helpers that uh, they'll have their own home in the village. They'll come to the city and they'll work for a very wealthy person. They'll clean the house. The wife will look after the children to a certain extent, but some things they'll bathe them and sometimes even nurse them and take them out to the park and do all of those things, and then chit chat with all of the others. Sometimes you see this in the park. You see all these women with the baby carriages, huh? And they're all chit chatting and everything. None of them are the mothers. Yeah, they'll all be the ones who are just looking after the children, but they'll talk about them as if they're their own children. This is what Thakur says. Oh, you should have seen what my little Huddy did today, and my shoe. Just with that feeling, but deep down they know that they don't belong to them, and they know that at any moment they can be asked to leave, and that they have their real home someplace else. So this is one way to try to live in the world like the maid servant in the rich man's house. Now, the other second way that Thakur talks about, if we have some attachment to family members and everything, then we try to take that feeling of attachment, which he calls Maya, and spread it out and have that feeling of love and affection for everybody, convert this Maya into Daya. So this is another kind of formula that he gives us. And then also he'll say, because some would come to him and say that no matter what I do, that the thought of my little child or a pet or something, my niece, something, nephew comes to my mind at the time of meditation. So Sri Ramakrishna would say, yeah, then look upon the child as baby Gopala, as God himself. Then see God in everyone. See God in everyone. But uh, for the householder and for the monk both, it doesn't mean uh, withdrawing from the world out of fear of attachment. Thakur didn't like that idea. So this other thing is this nivriti and pravritti. Do we engage in the world, or do we pull away from the world? Now, the old formula was that the monks had to practice this nivritti, which had two sides to it. One, it means mentally we have to turn within, keep the mind from going outward, but also not get engaged in the world. We get too attached. Now, Sri Ramakrishna didn't like this attitude too much. He would say the ancient rishis, they were very timid. They would leave their homes early morning and go out to the forest. They wouldn't look this way or that way, afraid of getting attached to anything. He liked a little more boldness. Yeah. So Swamiji is the one who really completely blurred the line between nivritti and pravritti, so that we engage in all of the same things, not all of them, many of the same things that householders will engage in. That means that we have to look after all the daily, we have to pay the bills, we have to look after the daily problems of the house, call maintenance people, mow the lawn, do all of those things. And serve in hospitals, serve in the office, in an orphanage, do relief work, all sorts of different types of things. This is all pravritti from the external point of view. But this nivritti has to be there, this detachment, unattachment. So if that is there in spirit, then everybody is leading a spiritual life, regardless of the externals of it. Now, if one lives in the world, this is what I was saying before, and one is constantly running after enjoyment and wealth and all sorts of different things, and says, "But I'm not attached," then there's no meaning to it. If one, where's the incentive? We have to look at that. What is the incentive to keep increasing our duties so that we have more possessions and enjoyments and less time to do spiritual practice? Yeah. So we'll see someone like him and some of the great householder disciples, they'll plan, as Ramchandra Datta, they'll plan for how quickly they can retire and lead more and more of a spiritual type of life. So everything is in the mind. Moniya kota. This is something that Sri Ramakrishna says over and over again. It's all a question of what is our spiritual attitude towards all of this. One can be a King Janaka, this is a rare thing, and run a whole kingdom and yet be non-attached. And one can renounce everything and be attached to even some status, be attached to sadhugiri, so playing the role of a holy person. This type of attachment can come and everything. So all the question of our spiritual attitude. Now, Keshav used to laugh when he heard this. He would say to Sri Ramakrishna, "You're saying this now, but after a while you'll sting us, or you'll bite us," like that. So Sri Ramakrishna said, "No, why will I do that? The point is that if one catches this spirit, then one will really want to give things up. And at some point, it'll feel like a burden. The more possessions we have, the more of a burden it is. And we give things away and we feel lighter. And the mind becomes clear and free." So there's a very short little paragraph, 3 sentences, but very, very important. I ask people to renounce mentally. So this is the most important element of it, whether it's external or internal. The internal has to be there. I do not ask them to give up the world. If one lives in the world unattached and seeks God with sincerity, then one is able to attain him. Now, what about Swamiji and all of the others? Did he not ask them to renounce the world? That's a different thing. These are the ones he doesn't have to force them to do it. These are the ones who were born for that. To Vijay. And this is also, there was a time when I too would meditate on God with my eyes closed. Now there's a footnote, an allusion to the Brahma way of meditating on God. Now most of us meditate with our eyes closed. Yeah. Yeah. So, what exactly is Ramakrishna talking about here? Now, we read sometimes on the Gita and other things, we'll see pictures of the eyes half closed, but we're not supposed to be really looking at anything. What he's saying is that we shouldn't think of meditation in such a narrow way. That meditation means that with a concentrated mind, that we try to feel that divine presence everywhere, even with eyes open. So even though that's not traditionally a type of meditation with eyes open, but if we close our eyes and feel the presence of God within, we open our eyes, we see the presence of God everywhere. This type of idea. So there was a time when I too would meditate on God with my eyes closed. Then I said to myself, does God exist only when I think of him with my eyes closed? Doesn't he exist when I look around with my eyes open? Now, when I look around with my eyes open, I see that God dwells in all beings. He is the indwelling spirit of all, men, animals, and other living beings, trees and plants, sun and moon, land and water. Now, I'm going to go a little bit on a tangent with this idea of meditating with eyes open. That because I know that there's some who really they try to sit with their eyes closed and try to picture the Ishta Devata, and they just can't do it. And the mind wanders. They can't concentrate at all. And some of our sadhus will say, then open your eyes and keep the picture there and look at the picture. Maybe then close your eyes again, or just look at the picture that way. Extreme cases. Otherwise, we're told then fight, keep trying. We have to keep trying. It's difficult for everybody. But I read something not long ago. This is from Swami Atmajnananda, which I thought was interesting. So I'm gonna read this. He said to a certain brahmachari with regard to meditation. He said, why do you sit so long keeping your eyes closed? He said, when you sit in the shrine, then why do you sit just closing your eyes the whole time? He said, look in the direction of Sri Ramakrishna. That means the photograph or the image. I don't know what was there at that time. And think that Sri Ramakrishna himself is sitting before you. One day, Thakur was sitting on his small, sitting in his room, and one member of the Brahmo Samaj came in. And Thakur was giving him different types of instructions, and this person was listening and from time to time closed his eyes. Then Thakur said to him, oh, what are you seeing with your eyes closed? And then the Swami Kandananda says, at that time I didn't understand what he meant. Later I understood that the avatar himself is sitting before him, and that he should pran bhare dekhe, and fill his eyes fill the whole heart, make his life blessed by gazing upon him. Then he says, so the Lord himself is there before you. And what are you saying with your eyes closed? Then he says, I said this to Swamiji, and hearing this, he became very happy. Anyhow, the interesting idea that I'm not suggesting this, that we all sit with our eyes open the time of meditation, but yeah. The Brahmos had their own way of doing things. Keeping our eyes open, first of all, they didn't have any belief in any form of God. So there wouldn't be any temple type of worship. There wouldn't be any image there, something like that. So Thakur is referring to that a little bit. But we have to understand meditation as a type of mood and attitude also. I mean, there'll be this specific time of meditation when we have to close the eyes because we're trying to forget that we even have eyes, trying to forget this physical body to try to feel ourselves as spirit that way. But the same attitude of seeing divinity everywhere with eyes open is something that he's also saying we have to do. Why do I seek Shivanath? He who meditates on God for many days has substance in him, has divine power in him. Now, we've seen so many times. First of all, Sri Ramakrishna went to see Shivanath and he wasn't there. And then he didn't come to see him. That they informed him that Sri Ramakrishna had come to see him. I don't know why Sri Ramakrishna was so nice to him and had such a high opinion of him. He didn't reciprocate very much. But he always uses him for examples. Why do I seek Shivanath? He who meditates on God for many days has substance in him, has divine power in him. Further, he who sings well, plays well on a musical instrument, or has mastered any one art, has in him real substance and the power of God. This is the view of the Gita. Yeah, very famous verse that we hear quite often, that whatever type of special talent one has, there's the presence of the divine within manifesting in a special way. It is said in the Chandi that he who is endowed with physical beauty has in him substance and the power of God. To Vijay, what a beautiful nature Kedar has. Now, this Kedarnath, he was a very close friend with Vijaykrishna Goswami because his work took him to Dhaka and he stayed there. He had his own place there. He was from Shihor. No, not Shihor, from Halishore and in Bengal. But he was often had to stay there. So they were very close friends. And he was a little funny because he experimented a lot. He went to all these different spiritual groups before he came to Sri Ramakrishna. And with, I think this Kartavajja sect, different things like that. And Thakur praises him sometimes, and also sometimes, one time he said, get him away from me, even. And he did funny things. He grabbed hold of his toe one time. And so a little funny character. And really played the role of a guru, but not in a bad way. That when he was in Dhaka, he used to say, many people come to me, what should I do? They want, because he would mostly talk about Sri Ramakrishna, of course, and everything. So Thakur wavered a tiny bit. He loved him. Sometimes he wasn't quite sure. It's an interesting relationship that they had. So here he's saying, what a beautiful nature Kedar has. No sooner does he come to me than he bursts into tears. His eyes are always red and swim in tears like a chanabara in syrup. Yeah, this is a type of gulab jamun type of thing. Huh? They fry it in oil and then they put it in the syrup. So it'll soak it all up. Vijay, at Dhaka, he is constantly talking about you. Yeah. Yeah, he asked Ramakrishna, what should I do? People want to bring gifts as if to the guru. Should I accept them? And do I need to have a little increase in spiritual power so that I can handle all of this and everything? A little bit of desire for that kind of thing. As Ramakrishna was about to depart, the Brahmo devotees bowed low before him, and he returned their salute. Then, getting into the carriage, he set out for Adha's house to see the image of the Divine Mother. Okay, now we start another day. That was Friday, September 26th, first day of Durga Puja. So now this is September 28th. So this will be the third day of the worship, 1884. It was the day of the Mahashtami. So that means that they finished, the first day is really just as Bodhan, awakening and everything. And then they'll have, this will be the most important, this Sandhi time between the 8th and the 9th day. It's considered the most sacred See, the Brahmos, they will have no image worship or anything, but they also observe the Durga Puja in their own way. And Thakur gave lectures on it. You remember in the beginning that M says how he attended the different lectures of M on this Navaratri period before Durga Puja. At Uddhav's invitation, Sri Ramakrishna had come to Calcutta to see the holy image at his house. Before going there, he went to Ram's, Ramchandra Datta. Many devotees, including Narendra, Babu Ram, M, Niranjan, Vijay, Kedar, Ram, and Surendra were present. These are all inner circle devotees, some monastic and some non-monastic. Balaram and Rakal were still at Vrindavan. Master, looking at Vijay and Kedar with a smile. This is a nice reunion today. Yeah, because they both met after being together in Dhaka. You two have the same spiritual mood, to Vijay. Well, what about Shivanath? Did you? Vijay. Yes, sir. He heard that you had been to his house. I haven't seen him, but I sent him word. He knows about it. Master, to Vijay and the others. 4 desires have come into my mind. Now, why will Thakur have desires come into his mind? He had to somehow keep this mind from just getting lost in the infinite. He had to keep these small little desires. Yeah. 4 desires have come into my mind. I shall eat fish curry cooked with eggplant. Good. Yeah. I shall visit Shivanath, again with Shivanath. The devotees will repeat the name of Hari over their beads, and I shall watch them. And the tantric devotees will drink consecrated wine, 8 annas worth, on the Ashtami day, and I shall watch them and salute them. The footnote, the 8th day of either half of the lunar month, an auspicious day for the followers of Tantra. When Sri Ramakrishna did his tantric sadhana, that he was supposed to drink wine. They call it karan. But it also means cause. So Thakur says that as soon as he saw it there and was told what it was, then into his mind came the idea of this great cause of the universe, the Brahman and everything, and he went into Samadhi, so there was no need to drink it. So some of the things he didn't do and he didn't have to do, he completed these different sadhanas in his own way. Yeah. But he tells so many funny stories about going with this Vaishnav Charan to the Kartabhaja group, and they'll sit and they'll start drinking this wine. He said, yeah, I was waiting for them to now sit in meditation, but they're drinking and then singing and dancing and falling down. Yeah. Narendra was seated in front of the master. He was about 22 years old. While Sri Ramakrishna was talking thus, his eyes fell upon his beloved disciple. At once, the master stood up and went into Samadhi. He placed one foot on Narendra's knee. So we have to try to picture this, that he'll be sitting on the ground with his legs folded. So just pushing his foot a little bit, it can be touching the knee. That he's in Samadhi. He's not so aware of what he's doing or anything. And at some point he'll forget everything. But at least at that point, because he used to somehow transmit spirituality by the touch, and sometimes it was the touch of the hand, sometimes the foot. Yeah, that why and how we don't really know, but this is not an uncommon thing. He placed one foot on Narendra's knee. He was in a deep spiritual mood, his eyes unblinking, his mind completely unconscious of the outer world. After a long time, he came down to the relative plane of consciousness, but he still appeared dazed, for the intoxication of divine bliss had not altogether left him. yeah, this nesha, this kind of intoxication, as if one has been drinking. Yeah, because when the mind would come down from that samadhi, uh, it would be in this little in between state, and there would be really this type of intoxication that would remain. Very often, the most beautiful teachings that we get from Sri Ramakrishna are in that state. When he comes down from this bhava samadhi, and then speaks, really like one inspired, like the Divine Mother herself is speaking through him at that time. Speaking to himself in that ecstatic state, he repeated the name of God. He said, Satchidananda, Satchidananda, Satchidananda. Shall I repeat that? No, it is the day of the Divine Mother. Satchidananda will be this impersonal Brahman aspect. No, it is the day of the Divine Mother, the giver of the bliss of divine inebriation. O Mother full of bliss of divine inebriation. Sare Gama Padhani. It is not good to keep the voice on ni. It is not possible to keep it there very long. I shall keep it on the next lower note. Yeah, sometimes Sri Ramakrishna would give this example that those who only care for the uh, impersonal absolute, they sing the same note over and over again. And those who like to see God in all different ways, they'll play all the different notes of the scale. There are different planes of consciousness, is Ramakrishna speaking. The gross, the subtle, the causal, and the great cause. Entering the Mahakarana, the great cause, one becomes silent, one cannot utter a word. Now, these states of consciousness, we read about this in detail in the Mandukya Upanishad. So this gross state will be the physical state and the waking state, both together. So with this physical body and everything, how we live in the world, this subtle, so one is stula and the other is sukshma. This subtle state will be the mental state. So even while awake, we have our mental life, but it also corresponds to the dream state. And then this karana state, this uh, causal state, this will be the dreamless sleep state. That state, and we're not aware of the body, the mind, or anything, subconscious state or something like that. And then the last one will be beyond all of them, that's samadhi state. So it corresponds to the different elements within the individual, also different states of consciousness, and the physical, and the mental, and the causal, and then the pure consciousness which illumines everything. This is the makeup of the individual. We have the idea of the five koshas or the three bodies. So this is that idea: the physical body, the mental body, then subconscious body, and then consciousness itself, which illumines everything. So entering the Mahakarana, the great cause, that means going into samadhi. One becomes silent. One cannot utter a word. But an isvarakotis, after attaining the great cause, can come down again to the lower planes. Isvarakotis is the term that Ramakrishna used for those, either the avatar or those who are companions, come along with the avatar. Sometimes he'll use this term Neti Siddhas, those who were born in the world, not because of any past karma that has to be worked out, or not because of any desire to be born again for any enjoyment, but only to help others. This type of idea. So these are the isvarakotis. After attaining the great cause, so that means after having this nirvikalpa samadhi. This is that distinction that Thakur makes, can come down again to the lower planes. So the reason is that when the mind will enter into, first of all, it won't enter into this fully merged state of Brahman. if there are any desires left and if there's any karma that has to be worked out. It's entering into that state where uh, there's no mechanism by which we can bring the mind back down because there's no sense of I. There's no personal feeling. There's no agent at that point. So we either some pull of karma or some divine purpose, the will of the Divine Mother, something will allow the mind to come back and down again. Otherwise, we're gone. Otherwise, the bird is flown out of the cage. There's no not going back. Or the salt doll has already melted into the ocean. So there's no coming back from that stage. But it won't happen until we've reached the end of our enjoyment, the end of our karma, and it'll be kind of a natural thing. If we haven't reached that, then we'll live in the world as the Jivan Mukta. And that means a little bit of that karma, prarabdha karma, will pull us back down a little bit, like the brick tied to the mongoose. Pull it down; it won't be able to stay there. Incarnations of God and others like them belong to the class of the isvarakotis. They climb up and they can also come down. They climb to the roof and they can come down again by the stairs and move about on a lower floor. It is a case of negation and affirmation. So this is another one of the important teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, that the path of Neti, that we have to follow to a certain extent, because our present understanding of ourselves is mixed up. That this sense of identification with the body and the mind and the personality is so strong that we have to first be able to separate it. We have to first be able to understand that I'm not this limited to this body-mind complex. I'm something beyond that. For the devotee, it can be done by feeling that I'm a child of the divine. So not child of my biological parents. That means that I'm identified with the body. Child of the Divine Mother means I'm identified with spirit somehow. So anything, whether devotional or philosophical, anything we do to help peel off the upadhis, disidentify with all of the coverings that we have, with our personality, with our ego, with our whole lifetime of experience, and to feel that we're the witness of all of that. That means we're making two categories: that the seer and the seen, the real and the unreal, the permanent, the impermanent, all of that. It's actually a kind of dualistic attitude that we take in order to get some feeling of what is the real nature of the self. So this is Neti. This is at the time of spiritual practice. Through this, we can realize our true nature as the self. And then when the mind comes back down again, it won't identify with the body or any of that, but it will see that even this body, even this physical universe, is part of this divine manifestation. And we'll see God everywhere and in everything. So this is Sri Ramakrishna gives equal importance to this Vichara-magga, this path of discrimination that Shankaracharya teaches, in order to understand that we're not limited to this body-mind, all of that, and to this idea that afterwards we don't discard all of this as unreal. We see it as a divine manifestation. So he liked both of these ideas. This is the idea of the jnani and the idea of the vijnani, the ideal. So there's a footnote. That is to say, the aspirant at first negates the world on account of its not being God, but after divine realization, he accepts the same world as the manifestation of God himself. There is, for instance, the 7-story palace of a king. Strangers have access only to the lower apartments, but the prince, who knows the palace to be his own, can move up and down from floor to floor. There's a kind of rocket that throws out sparks in one pattern and then seems to go out. After a moment, it makes another pattern, and then still another. The boosters. What do they call these things?
Peaks
Huh?
and troughs.
Tuberate, no, but in English, there's a type of firecracker. Yeah, it'll go off, and then again it'll go again, and then it'll go. Yeah, there's a name for these things. There's no end to the patterns it can make, but there's another kind of rocket that, when it is lighted, makes only a dull sound, throws out a few sparks, and then goes out altogether. Simple firecracker. Yeah. Like the second kind, an ordinary jiva, after much spiritual effort, can go to a higher plane, but he cannot come down to tell others his experiences. Thakur says the joy of that is so great that one doesn't want to come down. Even those who have this near-death experience, that they'll just, not that they're God-realized souls, but they'll see some light, or they'll feel their departed ancestors pulling them and everything. Almost always they say that they had no desire to go back into the body, that the pull of that experience was greater, and that they were kind of a disappointment when they didn't die somehow. That near-death experience means that they'll be saved somehow, come back, and that they have no fear of death after they've had that type of experience. And so, if for them, just even seeing departed ancestors, if there's such a pull for that, then you can imagine this experience of God realization. Who will want to come back down from that? So there's no incentive also. After much effort, he may go into Samadhi, but he cannot climb down from that state or tell others what he has seen there. There's a class of devotees, the Nitya Siddhas, the ever perfect. Now, sometimes Sri Ramakrishna will identify these with isvarakotis, sometimes not. I don't take these categories as so distinct and specific and everything. Who was an isvarakoti, who was a Nitya Siddha and everything. Sometimes Nitya Siddhas seem to be a larger group. That sometimes he used to say with this direct disciple, there are only 6 isvarakotis. Sometimes in general, we say, you see all of these boys, they're all Nitya Siddhas. So, at least according to Sri Ramakrishna's understanding, some could be a Nitya Siddha. That means that they didn't necessarily have to come with the avatar. But still, they're not born out of some need to do more spiritual practice. They're already perfect there. From their very birth, they seek God. Now, why do they seek God if they're already perfect? Taking human birth means a little Maya comes with it. There's no other way. They do not enjoy anything of the world. The Vedas speak of the Homa bird. It lives very high in the sky. There, the mother bird lays her egg. She lives so high that the egg falls for many days. While falling, it is hatched. The chick continues to fall. That also goes on for many days. In the meantime, the chick develops eyes. Coming near the earth, it becomes conscious of the world. It realizes it will meet certain death if it hits the ground. Then it gives a shrill cry and shoots up towards its mother. The earth means death, and it frightens the young bird. It then seeks its mother. She dwells high up in the sky, and the young bird shoots straight up in that direction. It doesn't look anywhere else. Those who are born as the companions of an incarnation of God are eternally perfect. For some of them, that birth is the last. Now, this is another thing that sometimes Ramakrishna says. In fact, he was asked one time, all of those who are coming to you, will they all get liberation? And he says, no, not those who belong to my inner circle. They'll have to come again when I come again. Yeah. Now, he's saying that some of them, it may be their last birth. So how this works, God knows. I have no idea how this works. Some will come every time. Some may come for the first time with him and then again later. Some may come once and then they're free. These are all mysterious things, the mystery of the divine incarnation. But for some of them, that birth is the last. I always like this conversation between this Rashbihari Maharaj, this Swami Arupananda, and Holy Mother. He was saying to Holy Mother, he was the closest really of the attendants on Holy Mother. So he's telling Holy Mother that I don't want to be born again. She said, no, what are you talking about? You'll have to be born again. When I come again, you'll come again. And I said, I don't want to. He said, you have no choice. You'll have to come. We're tied together. Something like that. So how these things work is hard to say. Okay, I think we can stop here. He'll continue with this conversation with Vijay. Om Niranjanam Nityamanandarupam Bhaktanukam Bhatudvikraham Vari Ishavataram Parameshamedhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasanamam. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thank you, everyone. Next Friday, I'll again be away. So, yeah, we'll miss that. And the Friday after that, I think Swami Sarvadevanandaji, we'll see if we can request him to take the class that time. Okay. Yeah. Leaves.